Hi, welcome to this second video on moving charges and magnetism. So in this lecture, we will learn about the motion of a charged particle in a magnetic field. That means if a charged particle is moving in a magnetic field at different angles, say for example when it is moving parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic field, what happens? And if the same charged particle is moving at right angles, what happens? If it is moving at some other angle, if not 90, if not 0 or 180, if it is moving say at an angle of 30 degrees, 45 degrees, what happens? We will learn that. Also we will learn about one important concept known as velocity selector, and also we will learn about a device called cyclotron. So these are the concepts that we are supposed to learn in this session. So coming to this case 1, when a charged particle is moving parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic field. See, as you can notice here, this represents the magnetic field acting along say positive x-axis, magnetic field B. And here a positive charge, this dot represents a positive charge. This charge is moving with a velocity v, making an angle theta which is equal to 0. That means the charge is moving with a velocity v, and the velocity is parallel to the magnetic field. That means v and b are in the same direction. V is parallel to b. That means a charge is moving parallel to the magnetic field. That means theta is equal to 0. Or in this case, the magnetic field is acting along the positive x-axis say, and the charge is moving along the negative x-axis with a velocity v. That means here theta is the angle between velocity vector and magnetic field vector, and theta is equal to 180. Whether theta is 0 or theta is 180, see, notice that the force experienced by the charged particle is given by the equation Fm, which is equal to qvb sin theta. Fm is equal to qvb sin theta, where theta is the angle between velocity and magnetic field. Theta is the angle between velocity and magnetic field. In these two cases, theta is 0 or 180. If theta is 0 or 180, sin 0 or sin 180 is 0. Sin 0 is 0, sin 180 is also 0. Therefore, the magnetic force experienced by the charged particle moving parallel or anti-parallel to the magnetic field is 0. So, Fm is equal to 0. In fact, this we have learnt in the previous session only. Now, coming to the next second case, in this case, now we will get a different result. Here the charged particle is moving perpendicular to the magnetic field, exactly 90 degrees. That means the magnetic field and the velocity vector both will act at an angle equal to 90 degrees. Here observe that in the diagram, if you observe the diagram, here you can see the cross mark. The cross mark represents, I have told you, cross mark represents the magnetic field applied perpendicular to the plane of the paper and inwards. The cross mark represents the magnetic field applied perpendicular to the plane of the paper, perpendicular and inwards. And so this is perpendicular and inwards, and the charge here dot represents the charge, and the charge at this point is moving say in this direction, say along positive x-axis. So the charge is moving along positive x-axis with a velocity v. Magnetic field is applied perpendicular to this v, perpendicular to the plane of the paper, perpendicular to the plane whatever, that is perpendicular. So if the charge is moving along say x-axis, and the magnetic field is applied perpendicular and inwards say along z-axis, and the force experienced by the charge is along say positive y-axis, you can apply the Fleming's left hand rule. So here this represents, forefinger represents the direction of the magnetic field, and the middle finger represents the direction of motion of the charge, and the thumb represents the force. I have told you this in the previous session. So this one magnetic field, this is velocity, and the thumb represents the force. So force is acting upwards. So therefore it so happens that this charge it is supposed to move in this direction, and the force is acting upwards. Therefore the charge goes in a circular path. It takes a circular path because a charge is supposed to move along x-axis, but a force is acting towards the center, and that force is magnetic force. That force is magnetic force. That force, magnetic force, is acting towards the center. That now acts as a centripetal force. That means this centripetal force is for this particle to go round, a centripetal force is required, and that centripetal force is provided by the magnetic force. Therefore the particle, now the charged particle, goes in a circular path. It goes in a circular path. So here V represents the linear velocity. So dear students, just keep this in your mind. One thing, see that the charge is moving along, say, positive x-axis with a velocity v. A magnetic field is applied along the z-axis perpendicular to velocity, theta is equal to 90. Now angle between velocity and magnetic field is 90 degrees. Now the charge will experience the force in the direction perpendicular to both velocity and magnetic field. Magnetic field and velocity, and perpendicular to both is the force. So therefore that force acts as a centripetal force, and therefore the particle goes in a circular path. It describes a circle. So remember this very clearly. A charged particle moving at right angles to the magnetic field experiences the magnetic force, and that force results in the centripetal force, and therefore the particle describes the circular path. So once it describes the circular path, now let us see further what happens. Here force is equal to qvb sin theta. Theta is equal to 90 degrees, and that is the maximum force. In fact, Fm is equal to qvb, that is the maximum force. So this force becomes equal to the centripetal force. Fm is equal to mv squared by r. So equating qvb, which is the magnetic force which provides the centripetal force, if you equate the two, mv squared by r is the centripetal force, qvb is the magnetic force, both are same. So if you equate that, you will get the equation for the radius of the particle which is describing the circle. Radius of the charged particle which is in a circular path, r is equal to mv divided by qb. R is equal to mv divided by qb. mv represents the momentum of the particle. So r is equal to p by qb. You can write also r is equal to p by qb. P represents the momentum, mv represents the momentum, mass into velocity, q is the charge, b is the magnetic field. And we also know that angular frequency omega is equal to v by r. Omega is equal to v by r. So v is the velocity, r is the radius, omega. So now v is the velocity, r is the radius. Radius is nothing but mv divided by qb. Therefore v and v goes, this qb goes to the numerator. Therefore omega is equal to qb divided by m. This omega represents the angular frequency. Omega is equal to 2 pi f. Substitute for omega, you will get 2 pi f is equal to qb by 2 pi qb by m, and send this 2 pi to the other side. You will get frequency of revolution. Frequency of revolution of the charged particle f is equal to qb divided by 2 pi m, and f is nothing but 1 by t, reciprocal of time period. So 1 by t is equal to qb by 2 pi m, or t is equal to q2 pi m divided by qb. This is the equation for the time period of the charged particle for one rotation. Time period means time taken for one rotation, and the time taken for one rotation depends on the mass of the charged particle and the charge, and also the magnetic field applied. So this is what happens, dear students. Please remember, when the charged particle enters the magnetic field with a velocity v at right angles to the magnetic field, it experiences the maximum magnetic force, and that maximum magnetic force provides the centripetal force, and therefore the particle goes in a circular path. And the radius of the circular path, just equate the magnetic force and centripetal force, you will get the equation for the radius, and from that you can get the equation for time period and also the frequency of revolution of the charged particle. So that is one thing. Suppose now we'll go for the next case. The next case is this. Okay, fine. Before we go to the next case, just check this one. The frequency of the charged particle is independent of velocity. You just remember this because we need it. We need it in the concept of cyclotron. Therefore, remember this. The frequency of a charged particle, it is equal to, you just now learnt, frequency is equal to what? QB divided by 2 pi m. So QB divided by 2 pi m, because frequency is independent of velocity. We say that the frequency is independent of velocity, whatever the velocity is. If velocity increases, radius also increases. That's what I wanted to say. If velocity increases, radius increases. The frequency of a charged particle is independent of velocity. For a given charged particle, frequency depends only on B. Only on B means, here notice that F is equal to B divided by 2 pi. F is equal to B divided by 2 pi, Q divided by M. For a charged particle, frequency depends only on B, where Q by M is the charge to mass ratio of the charged particle. It is constant for a given charged particle. For a given charged particle, it is constant. For example, if I take a proton, the charge and mass of the proton remains constant. So therefore, this charge to mass ratio of a given particle remains constant, whereas B you can change. So therefore, we say that frequency, of course, no doubt, frequency depends on magnetic field. Frequency also depends on charge and mass. But for a given charge, frequency depends only on the magnetic field. Frequency depends only on the magnetic field for a given charge. That's what you have to understand. Next, sorry. Yeah. So if that is the thing, and again notice this time period is 2 pi m divided by QB. I have written this m here in the denominator of the denominator. T does not depend on the radius of the circular path. If Q by m is constant in a magnetic field, that is particles having same Q by m value take the same time to complete one revolution irrespective of the radii. Only one thing that you have to understand from this here is time period does not depend on the radius of the circular path. Time taken for one revolution does not depend on the radius of the circular path. It does not depend on the radius of the circular path. Please keep in your mind, it does not depend on the radius of the circular path. So, time taken is same for a given charge. It only depends on the magnetic field, because frequency depends only on the magnetic field for a given charge. Time period also depends on the magnetic field for a given charge. That is one thing. So final conclusion is this: T and F do not depend on V and R. This principle is used to accelerate charged particles in a cyclotron. T and F, time period, time taken for one rotation, and frequency, number of rotations per second, both does not depend on the velocity of the charged particle or even the radius of the charged particle. So that is one thing that you will have to understand very clearly. Okay, so having learned that, in fact we have to learn this, I believe. Yes. Now case 3, observe dear students, the case 3. The case 3 is very important. Helical motion of a charged particle in a magnetic field. Case 1, when the charge is moving parallel or anti-parallel, you know that the force experienced is 0. Case 2, when the charge is moving perpendicular to the magnetic field, theta is 90, the charged particle experiences maximum magnetic force, and therefore it will go in a circular path, and the centripetal force required for that circular motion is provided by that, and R is equal to mv by qb, and frequency, time period, everything you know. Now if the charged particle is moving at an angle theta, where theta is not equal to 0, theta is not equal to 180, theta is not equal to 90. In that case, please understand, in that case, suppose if the velocity is making an angle theta, with the magnetic field, say this is the direction of the magnetic field, and my hand represents the direction of velocity, this one velocity, and here this represents the direction of the magnetic field. So in this case, see that you can resolve the velocity in two directions. you can resolve it in the perpendicular direction to the magnetic field and parallel direction to the magnetic field. Perpendicular and parallel components you will get. So you can now resolve the velocity in two directions. If this represents velocity, you can split the velocity in two directions. A component of velocity parallel to the magnetic field, that is v cos theta, a component of velocity perpendicular to the magnetic field, and that is v sin theta. Please remember, see that you can split the velocity in two directions. Okay, if you want, you just note down here. See, it is given here very clearly, velocity is in this direction. You can split the velocity like in the direction of the magnetic field, say along x axis, and that is known as v parallel component. And you can also have the component of velocity perpendicular to x axis, perpendicular to the magnetic field, that is v perpendicular component. So now this, if a charged particle is projected, please listen, if a charged particle is projected at an angle theta which is not 0, which is not 90, which is not 180, some angle theta, then you can have two components of velocity, a component parallel to the magnetic field, a component perpendicular to the magnetic field. A component parallel to the magnetic field takes the charged particle, makes the charged particle to move in the direction of the magnetic field. A component perpendicular to the magnetic field will make the charged particle to go in the path of the circle. Please listen. Here two components are acting. There are two components of velocity. One, parallel component, the component of velocity parallel to the magnetic field, that is v cos theta, v parallel component, makes the particle to move in the direction of the magnetic field. Another component, that is perpendicular component, that is v sin theta. That v sin theta component of velocity of the charged particle makes the particle to go in the circular path. So therefore, for the charged particle which enters the magnetic field at some angle, will have two types of motion. One, it will have circular motion. Along with the circular motion, it will also have translatory motion. That means it will have to move along the x axis, as well as it has to go in the circular motion in the yz plane. Circular motion in the yz plane. Circular motion perpendicular to x plane, that is yz plane. Okay. So therefore what happens, the charged particle goes in a helical path. The path traced by the charged particle will be helical path will be there. So if you put now theta is equal to 90, only circular path. If you put theta is equal to 0, only straight line path. If both are there, that means if theta is not 0, not 180, not 90 degrees, then it takes a helical path. Here we define a concept known as pitch. Pitch is this. Pitch is the distance travelled by the charged particle along the direction of the magnetic field in a time equal to one time period. That means, say the particle starts here and it goes and comes back. By the time it comes back, it would have travelled some distance along the positive x-axis. See that it goes in this direction and comes back here. So that means the distance travelled by the charged particle along the magnetic field in a time equal to one time period, because it also moves in the direction of the magnetic field and it also goes in the circular path. What makes the charged particle to go in the circular path? Perpendicular component of velocity. What makes the charged particle to move in the direction of the magnetic field? Parallel component of velocity. So pitch is the distance travelled by the charged particle in the direction of the magnetic field in a time equal to one time period or during one rotation. See, if it starts from one point, after one rotation, it won't come back to the same point. It would have travelled further along the positive x-axis in the direction of the magnetic field. So that is called pitch. So while considering pitch, you have to consider the x component or parallel component of velocity into time period. Pitch The distance traveled is equal to velocity into time. Distance traveled is equal to velocity into time. Which velocity we have to consider? We have to consider, no doubt, the parallel component of velocity, because parallel component of velocity is responsible for the charged particle to move in the direction of the magnetic field, and therefore Vx into t. So Vx is equal to V cos theta. Time is equal to 2 pi m divided by qb. Therefore pitch is equal to 2 pi m V cos theta divided by qb. So that is the pitch. That is one important thing you should have to learn in the helical motion. Next, dear students, here one important thing, it is quite interesting also. Just see that a charged particle is moving along positive x-axis with a velocity v, okay, and electric field is applied along, say, positive x-axis. Electric field is applied along positive x-axis, and a magnetic field is applied along the positive z-axis. A magnetic field is applied along positive z-axis. So please take care of all the directions. A charge is moving with a velocity which is a vector. Velocity is a vector with a velocity along x-axis. The magnetic field is applied along positive z-axis. Electric field is also applied along positive y-axis. Now, as you know, the charge will experience magnetic Lorentz force. Lorentz force, combined magnetic field, crossed field. We call this as crossed, C-R-O-S-S-E-D, crossed fields. Why cross fields? Because a charged particle is now subjected to both electric and magnetic fields perpendicular to each other. See that electric field is acting along positive y-axis and magnetic field is acting along z-axis. So therefore the two fields, electric and magnetic fields, are acting perpendicular to each other. Rekha, sorry, both magnetic field and perpendicular, electric and magnetic fields are acting at right angles to each other, and that fields are known as cross fields. Now, when the charged particle is moving, in both the fields, when the charged particle is moving subjected to both electric and magnetic fields, it experiences both electric force and magnetic force. And look at the directions of the electric and magnetic force. See that, one, if the charged particle is moving, if the charged particle is moving, say, along x-axis, electric field is applied along positive y-axis. Electric field is applied along positive y-axis, and therefore the charge will experience the force due to electric field along positive y-axis only, because you know that a positive charge moves in the direction of the field or experiences force in the direction of the field. That is one thing. So the charged particle will experience the force in the direction of the electric field, that is Fe, that is electric force experienced, which is equal to Q into E. You know that electric force Fe is equal to Q into E, and that force is experienced along positive y-axis, because electric field is applied along positive y-axis, because you know that a charged particle, positively charged particle, experiences the force in the direction of the electric field. Okay. Now, in what direction the magnetic field is applied? The magnetic field is applied along the positive z-axis, but a charge is moving along the positive x-axis, and the force, what force? Magnetic force. There are two forces here. One force is due to electric field, the other force is due to magnetic field. The other force which is due to magnetic field, that is magnetic force, that is given by QVB sin theta. Theta is 90, sin 90 is 1, QVB. That magnetic force is perpendicular to both magnetic field and velocity. Apply Fleming's left hand rule. If you apply the Fleming's left hand rule, you will come to know that magnetic force acts in the direction of negative y-axis, that is the magnetic force. So dear students, notice that a charge, if a charge is here above, that means along the positive y-axis, a charge is experiencing the magnetic electric force, and exactly below, under, it is experiencing the magnetic force Fm. So a charged particle moving in a crossed field experiences the magnetic force in one direction and the electric force in the direction opposite to the magnetic force. So observe here, there are two, Fe. Fe is the electric force and Fm is the magnetic force. Fe is the electric force experienced by the positively charged particle along the positive y-axis, and Fm is the magnetic force experienced by the positively charged particle but along the negative y-axis. Suppose the forces are opposite, if they are equal. See that if the values of electric and magnetic fields are adjusted such that the charged particle experiences no force, then the magnetic force is equal to the electric force. So you can now cut charge and charge here, and therefore you will get velocity is equal to E divided by V. That means, see that for this condition, for the net force in this case QE is equal to QVB, the net force is 0. The force acting upwards is equal to the force acting downwards, the net force is 0. So V is equal to E by B. Now what happens? Suppose if you have a group of charged particles with varying velocities, and the charged particles are made to move in this crossed fields, only those charged particles whose velocity is equal to E by B, the charged particles with velocity is equal to E by B experiences zero net force. Because they experience zero net force, they continue to move along the positive x-axis. See here, I'll have so many charged particles here, say for example. Suppose the charged particles with velocity equal to E by B, and those charged particles with velocity equal to E by B will experience zero net force, and therefore the charged particles will move in the direction of the velocity in the original direction, say along positive x-axis. Just give a moment, I'll come back. Sorry students, so this V is equal to E divided by B. If a charged particle is selected to have this velocity, then the fields are said to be crossed fields. That's what I told you, no? This principle is used in mass spectrometer, which is a device used to separate charged particles having different masses. Okay, so this is the velocity selector. One important thing is QE is equal to QVB, V is equal to E by B. So remember, the charged particles with a velocity equal to E by B moving in the crossed fields will experience zero net force, and therefore they move in the original direction. They are not affected by any magnetic or electric fields. Okay, that is one thing, dear students. Any doubts, you just come back to me. Cyclotron, it is a device used to accelerate the charged particles to extremely high velocities. It is a device used to accelerate the charged particles to extremely high velocities. That is called cyclotron. Okay, so cyclotron. Now, principle of cyclotron. Please understand, the time taken by the charged particle to complete one revolution is independent of radius. Time period is independent of radius. Time period is 2 pi m divided by qb. It is independent of radius. As the energy of the charged particle increases, the radius of the orbit also increases. Check this one. R is equal to 2m ek divided by qb. You can do this because ek is equal to kinetic energy is half mv square. Kinetic energy is half mv square, and velocity equations, you know, you can get the equation for the radius, you know that. If you remember, R is equal to mv divided by qb. If you remember, R is equal to mv divided by qb. And if you substitute for velocity in terms of kinetic energy, ek is equal to half mv square. or V square is equal to what is that, 2E by m. So if you substitute, definitely you will get this equation for radius. So this is the equation for the radius, principle of cyclotron. Remember, principle of cyclotron, you have to write these two things. Energy of the charged particle increase, the radius of the orbit also increases. R is directly proportional to the kinetic energy, and the time period or frequency of revolution is independent of radius and velocity. Time period t or frequency is independent of radius as well as velocity. Radius, velocity, it is not depending on radius and velocity. This is the principle of cyclotron. What is cyclotron? Very simple. Cyclotron is a device used to produce the charged particles of very high energies to very high energies. So that is called cyclotron theory. See that you just remember important expressions. mv squared by r is equal to bqv. Oh, wait. Construction we will learn, then we'll go for this one. See here you can see D1 and D2. D1 and D2. Please listen. I'll also explain the construction and working in the same slide. D1 and D2. What is that you have to understand here is very simple. Imagine your tiffin box, circular shaped tiffin box without breakfast in it, kali. So you just cut that to the center. So you will now get, you have that circular shaped tiffin carrier, and exactly cut it to the center. Now you will get two pieces, and those two pieces appears in the form of the letter D, correct? Appears in the form of letter D, and see that these two pieces, that is halo circular semicircular discs, those are called D1 and D2. Ds, they are called Ds, DEES. So D1 and D2, what are D1 and D2? D1 and D2 are the halo semicircular discs. Exactly what I told is correct. You have to take your tiffin carrier, circular shaped tiffin carrier, cut it to the center, exactly cut it to the center, and you will get two pieces, and both the pieces will be in the form of the letter D, and therefore they are called Ds. And this inside halo will be there, nothing is there, breakfast is not there inside your tiffin box, okay? So it is halo. So now imagine that two discs D1 and D2, you have connected the disc D1 and D2 to the oscillator. Oscillator means AC source, alternating current source. You have connected D1 and D2 to the oscillator. Oscillator means AC. AC means alternating current source. AC, not DC. You have connected D1 and D2 to the oscillator. Is that clear? And now see here, here you have got a deflector. A charged particle which comes here will undergo deflection. Look, this is called deflector, okay? S is the source of the charged particle. S is the source of the charged particle, which is kept in between the two Ds. Okay? Source of the charged particle source of the charged particle kept in between the two Ds, okay? This one. Now I'll tell you what exactly happens here. So I hope the things are clear. Very simple it is. One thing, please remember, two halo semicircular discs in the shape of the letter D. Those discs are D1 and D2. These discs D1 and D2 are connected to the oscillator. At the end there is a deflector. Any charge moving in that direction will undergo deflection. And now you have to understand one more thing, that a magnetic field is applied. A magnetic field is applied in a plane perpendicular to the plane of the Ds. In a plane perpendicular to the diagram also. In a plane perpendicular to the diagram, that means in a plane perpendicular to the diagram, cross. you have applied the magnetic field. Just imagine that you have kept the north pole of the magnet on one side and the south pole on the other side. That means you have subjected these discs to the magnetic field, and you see that you have applied the magnetic field perpendicular to the plane of this diagram, plane of the discs, plane of the paper also, plane of the paper also. So remember these things very clearly. Now you have applied two things. One, you have applied the magnetic field and also the electric field. Applied the magnetic field and electric field both. Electric field in terms of oscillator, magnetic field you have applied perpendicular to the plane of the disc. Okay, perpendicular to the plane of the disc. Now please listen, what happens here. This S is the charged particle source of the charged particle. That means it keeps giving you the charged particle. Say imagine it gives you one charged particle. Now right now it gives you one charged particle. See this charged particle, when this source gives one charged particle, that charged particle, imagine, gets attracted by D2 because D1 and D2 both are connected to oscillator. So when D1 is positive, D2 will be negative, because it is an oscillator, because it is a alternating current source. When D1 is positive, D2 is negative, therefore a positively charged particle given by the source is attracted by D2. It is attracted by D2, therefore that charge gets attracted by D2 and moves inside. It goes inside, that moves inside. So why it moves inside the D2 disc? Because D2 is at a negative potential. Because it is at a negative potential, it attracts the positively charged particle, and therefore the positively charged particle goes inside. Once it goes inside, please listen, once it goes inside, the electric field is zero, because you know that electric field inside a cavity of a conductor is zero. Electrostatics of conductor, remember, electric field inside a sphere is zero. Therefore once it goes inside, the field, electric field, becomes zero, and therefore it will not experience any electrical force until it goes in. It is attracted by the disc D2, because disc D2, imagine now, is at the negative potential, D1 is at the positive potential. See that, I repeat from the beginning. Here S is the source of the charge. See, at some moment it gives a charge, positive charge. When it gives a positive charge, at that moment think that D1 is positive and D2 is negative. If D1 is positive and D2 is negative, D2 is at a negative potential, it pulls the charge towards it. And therefore the charge will enter inside the disc. Because D2 is negative potential, it will enter, it will attract the charge. Once it enters, the force becomes zero, electrical force becomes zero, because electric field becomes zero. Electric field inside the cavity of a conductor is zero. Electrostatics of conductors. Look at the chapter number 2. We have learnt electric field intensity inside a charged conductor is zero. Therefore electric field zero. But look at the magnetic field. Now there is a magnetic field. Magnetic field applied perpendicular, and the charge is moving in the direction at right angles to the magnetic field. See, inside, inwards is the magnetic field, and perpendicular to the magnetic field the charge is moving. Since the charge is moving perpendicular to the magnetic field, it will experience the maximum magnetic force. The maximum magnetic force, F is equal to QVB. And that maximum magnetic force which is experienced by the charged particle makes the particle to go in a circular path. You know that when a charged particle moves in a direction perpendicular to the magnetic field, it will experience the maximum magnetic force, and therefore it goes in a circular path. Now this charged particle, once it enters the disc, it will experience the force, and therefore it goes in a circular path. It goes in a circular path, and after some times it comes back to the gap again. Please remember, it comes back to the gap again. By the time the charged particle makes half of the revolution, and it comes to the gap, now frequency of the oscillator is so adjusted that by the time the D1 now becomes negative. Why D1 becomes negative? Because it is it is connected to an oscillator, AC source. Therefore, what happens, dear students, listen properly. By the time the charged particle makes this semicircular path, half of the path, D1 becomes negative, and now it gets attracted. What gets? The charged particle gets attracted by the disk D1, because D1 is now negative. So it enters D1. Once it enters D1, again the magnetic field comes into picture. That magnetic field makes the makes the charged particle to go in a circular path. Now, since the velocity is in this direction, now the velocity is from right to left, the force will be acting upwards, and therefore the charged particle experiences the force upwards, and therefore it traces the semicircular path. Again it comes here, again it comes to the gap again. Now by the time this charged particle goes in a semicircular path and comes to the gap again, the polarity would have changed, and D2 would have again become what? Negative. What is that? Negative polarity. That means potential is negative, and that gets attracted. So therefore, every time the charged particle comes to the gap, polarity changes, and therefore the particle goes in a circular path of higher radius. Now notice that the radius of the circular path or the velocity does not depend on time period. Time taken for this semicircle and for this semicircle and for this semicircle, for all the semicircles, time period will be the same, frequency will be the same, because time period and frequency does not depend on the radius or the velocity. So time taken for this small semicircle or next semicircle or even bigger semicircle will be the same. So same time period. So by the time the particle makes one semicircular path, polarity changes and the charge gets attracted here. So wonderful, na? Now it comes here, again the polarity changes, it gets attracted here. So therefore it becomes, the radius becomes bigger, and with the increase in the radius, kinetic energy also increases. You know that, you have learned that in the principle of cyclotron. The radius is directly proportional to the kinetic energy, and therefore as the radius becomes bigger, the kinetic energy also becomes more, and finally it comes here. Say when it comes here, now it is getting deflected by this path and comes out. That comes out through this exit port. It comes out through the exit port. All these students you have to learn. So, and now the charged particle here, it is just given by the source with zero energy, and when it comes out of the cyclotron, it will have maximum kinetic energy. It will have, and that is how you energize the charged particle using the cyclotron. This is the working and theory. Construction and working of the cyclotron. I hope it is very clear, and suppose if it is not clear, I can explain you again, or you can just halt it, see the video again, you will get it. Coming to the theory, see, mv squared by r is equal to bqv, or v is equal to v. You know this equation, you know this centripetal force, maximum magnetic force. V is equal to bqr by m. Velocity, time taken is equal to pi m divided by qb, time taken by the charged particle to describe semicircular path, and t is equal to 2t. Here why 2t? That you have to tell, because see that semicircular path we have taken. Here t is the time of resolution for resonance. That is, time t, capital T, is actually the time period of oscillator. Capital T is the time period of oscillator. Time period. Look at this one. See that the time taken for semicircular path, must be equal to the half of the time period of the oscillator, because by the time it comes here, the polarity should change. That is the reason the point 2t comes here. F is equal to bq divided by 2 pi m. Think about this, and it is easy to understand. T is equal to 2t, where t is the time period of the oscillator, and this small t is the time taken by the charged particle to describe the semicircular path. Yes, it is semicircular path. Okay, so that is one thing. When velocity is maximum, see that mv squared by r is equal to bqv, or v is equal to bqr by m, maximum kinetic energy. You know that half mv square is the kinetic energy of m v square. V is bqr by m whole square, or maximum kinetic energy is half b square q square r square divided by m. B square q square r square by m. This m represents, rm means maximum radius, maximum kinetic energy. Okay, so just look at this one, and you can take the screenshots wherever required. So that what is the limitation of cyclotron? One thing you just keep in your mind: cyclotron cannot be used to energize the charged particles like electrons, small charged particles like electrons, because electrons will have very low mass, very low mass. Mass of the electron is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. Therefore, a charged particles with very low mass cannot be energized, because the mass is very less, and see that energy, you require a very big cyclotron to produce very high energies. The physical size of the cyclotron should be very high, and that is the limitation. Because see that half mv square, if you want to increase the kinetic energy, m of the electron is very less, and if you want to increase the kinetic energy, you require more radius. More radius means you require bigger cyclotron. That is technical difficulty. Therefore, usually electrons are not used, only alpha particles, protons are used to energize. Here we assume that limitation of cyclotron, we assume that mass is constant even at higher velocities, but mass is actually not constant. Mass of a subatomic particle varies. M is equal to m naught divided by 1 minus v square by c square. Here m is the mass of the particle when it is moving with velocity v, m naught is the rest mass when it is at rest. Mass of a body is not constant, relativistic variation, which means if you imagine a subatomic particle like electron, proton or so, those particles will not have the constant mass, because the mass of those particles will depend on velocity. Please listen, mass depends on velocity. Mass is not a constant quantity, relativistic variation of mass. So m naught is the mass of the body when it is at rest, m is the mass of the body when it is moving at a velocity v. So this is relativistic variation in mass. When a charged particle moves at very high velocities, the radius of the semicircular path increases. High velocity, radius increases. The time taken becomes more. So the potential of the disc do not alternate in step with the motion of ions. Hence the working of cyclotron is limited to some velocities only, because as you increase the velocity, the radius increases and the time taken, now what we said, time taken is independent of radius and velocity, we said, because here the mass varies. See, while telling this, here see the time period or frequency depends on mass. As the velocity increases, mass also increases. Relativistic variation, those effects can be neglected, but even then there will be slight variation in the things. So therefore frequency depends on mass. We assume that mass is constant, but relativistic variation of mass should be taken into account. So that is the limitation of cyclotron. Anyway students, hope the velocity selector, cyclotron, motion of a charged particle, parallel or anti-parallel or even right angles or even helical path, everything has got into your head. Thinking that today's session was comprehensible, we will end this session and I'll come with the next session with new concepts. Until then, goodbye.